Hello everyone, welcome back. In this part, we're going to talk about JavaScript, Booleans, and comparison and logical operators. As you know, we have Boolean values in JavaScript, which is going to have only one of the two values of true or false. And these are just like yes for true, no for false, or we can say on for true and off for false. And this is going to give us if this is true, yes, on, or if this is false, no, or off. And as same as these, we have values of 1 for true and 0 for false. But pay attention that if we have some variable right here, and let's define this to false. Now, if we console log our variable, you can see that here we're going to have our false right here. But what if I give this some integer instead of my false? If we want to check if this is true or false, we can use function of Boolean. And here we simply use our Boolean function right here and pass our variable to this function. And now if we run, you can see that we got true value. And basically every value and every variable with some value inside of it is going to be true. So if we have this in string mode and run our code, you can see again we getting true. If we pass some words here and run our code, you see again we got our true. But let's say here we give 0 instead of our value. So this is as same as false. And now if we run, you can see that we got this false value. And everything and every variable without any declaration, so it be undefined or null, is going to be false. Now if we run, you can see again we got this false value. And if we set this x variable to null and run our code, you can see again we got our value of false right here. But let's say here we have some things going on of this string of null. And if we run, you can see that we got true because we are saving the word of null inside of our variable. And this is not empty and has some value, and because of this, our Boolean value is going to be true. But let's say we want to multiply this by 5. If we run this in simple mode, you can see that here we're going to have not a number. But if we check if this x is false or true, you see that we got the value of false. So NaN, which is not a number, is going to be false inside of our code. So here we can have any values that is going to be true. Let's say we have some float numbers right here. If we run, you can see again we got our true. And pay attention that if we use this false right here and run our code, is going to be false. But if we pass the word of false into our variable and run our code, you see that it's going to be true because we're going to save the value and the word of false as same as we did with null keyword. And one other thing that you can do is pass some negative values into your variable. And if you run, you can see again this is going to be true. But if we have 0 and run, is going to be false. And pay attention, if you have minus beside of your 0, again it's going to be false. And you can have some math going on right here. It doesn't matter because this variable has some value inside of it. This is going to be true. But what if we pass some empty string into our variable? Here you see that we are not defining anything and saving anything inside of our variable. So if we run, you can see that we got the value of false. The next thing that we're going to talk about is our comparison operators. Let's say here we have our a variable to be 4, and then after this we have our b variable, which is going to be 7. We can compare these two variables with each other. So the first operator that we want to talk about is equal to. So if we want to check if a equals to b, we use our variables and our operator between of them. So here we have our a and b, and between of these we're going to use double equal mark. And this is going to give us if a equals to b. And if we run, you can see that we got our false value. But if we have this 4 and that 4 too, and run, you can see that we got our value of true right here. And this is going to check if the values are same or not. But we have another operator which is 3 equal mark beside each other. And this is going to check the value and after that the type of our variables to be same or not. So if we have our b the same 4 but in string, if we use our simple equal operator, you can see that we got the value of true. But if we check the type 2, you can see that if we run, we got the result of false. And that is because both of these are going to give us number 4. But this is going to give us that in integer and number mode. And this is going to give that to us in string mode. But let's say here we have number 7 instead of number 4. And if we run, you can see that we got the false result. And this false because of 2 reasons. First, because these are not the same. This is 4 and this is 7. And the second reason is that these are not in the same type. So let's make this 7. And now if we run, you can see again we got the false even in simple equal operator. But let's say if we want to check if these are not the same and not the equal. So if we use this exclamation mark instead of our first equal just like this, we're going to have opposite results. So if these are not equal, we're going to receive true. And if we have again this is 4 and run, we got this false. Because this is going to grab the result of our simple comparison of if those are same, going to give us true and not going to give us false, and reverse the result. And as same as this, we have this double equal mark after here, which is going to check if the values or types are not equal. So here we should get the value of false as you see. But if one of these is going to be a string instead of number and run, you can see that we got our true. And this is the not and opposite of this operator. After this, we can check if our a variable or our b variable is larger or less than each other. So we can use this mark, which is going to show us if a larger than b. And if we run, you can see that we got the value of false because 4 is not larger than 7. But if we use the opposite of that, which is less than mark, because a is less than 7, we're going to receive true results right here. And another thing that we can have here is less than or equal to. So if we use another equal mark right here, it's going to check if a less than or equal to b. So if we have this in less than mode and run, you can see that we got this true. But if we have this 7 right here, if we check only if a is less than b, you know that we got the value of false. But if we use this equal mark right here and run our code, we got the value of true. And just as same as this, we have greater than or equal to mark, which is going to compare if our a greater than b or equal to b. So in this case, again, this is going to give us the value of true. And if we make this, for example, 9 instead of 7 and run our code, again, this is going to be true. And pay attention that here we can have our numbers in string mode. And because JavaScript grabs the value, in these cases, we're going to get the same results as before. So if we check if A is larger than B, you can see we got the true. If we check opposite of that, which is A less than B, we got the value of false. And we can have both of these in the string mode. And again, our code is going to be work as before. But here, let's say we have our A variable to be number 3, our B variable to be number 5, and then let's say we have another variable of C, which is going to be, let's say, number 9. And we want to check a little complicated condition and comparison. So we want to check if A is larger than B and C is larger than A. So we're going to have this, and after this, we're going to check if C is larger than A. If we run in this console log mode, you can see that we got the value of false right here and true right here. So here, let's have these one to be string, so we can see the result of each one in our console. So we can see that if we check A is larger than B, we got the value of false. And if we check C is larger than A, we got the true. So let's say we want to make this less than, so we got both of the results to be true, as you see. And now if we want to combine both of these comparisons together, we are going to use our first comparison right here. And then after this, we use this AND operator, which is going to give us true if these two ones are true, and going to give us the false in other situation. So we can have 4 different results of comparing this Boolean value and this Boolean value. First one is our first comparison is true, and our second one is true either. And the AND operator is going to give us again true in this case. The other one is one of them is true and the other one is false. And in this case, we are going to have false as our result. And if we have this one true and this one false, again, we're going to have false. And if we have both of these to be false, we're going to receive false right here. And because both of these are true in this case, if we run, you can see that because this is true and this is true, we got this true. But if we make this greater than instead of less than, and let's change this to, and check this one to be greater than 2, and run our code, you can see that we got our false value, because one of our booleans are false. So we got the false. And now let's actually delete these ones so our code be a little cleaner. Now you can see because A is not larger than B, we got false in this part and false in this part too. So we got 2 false totally in this part, which is going to give us false because this rule is going to be applied. But if we have the opposite of this, which is both of them to be true, and run our code, we got our true value. And if we have each one of them to be false, we got false value. So if this is true and this is false, again, we're going to receive false value. But another thing that we can have instead of AND is our OR, which we can use 2 vertical bars instead of our AND right here. And this is going to give us different value. What this does is if both of our items are true, going to give us true. If one of the items are true, again, this is going to give us the value of true. And just like this is going to be true. And it only gives us the false value if both of our items are false. So here, let's say we're going to have both of these to be true. So this one is true. And now let's change this to OR operation. And let's check all 4 of these rules. So the first thing is both of them to be true. This is true, but this is not. So let's make this true too. And now if we run, you can see that we got true value. And in the second rule, we have our second one to be false. So let's make this false instead of true. And if we run, you can see again, we got our true value right here. After this, the next one is our first one is false and our second one is true. And if we run this, you can see again, we have this true. But in the case that both of these are false, we're going to have our false value. And we can have combination of and or right here. So we can have this one, which is going to give us some result, and have another comparison of, let's say we want to check if C is larger than B. So this is going to give us the value if this part gives us some true value and this part gives us some true value too. So you can say it's going to apply something like this, that it's going to check this part first and then this part. You know that we have this part to be true in these 3 situations. So let's make this true. And here we can have true value for this part. And this AND operator is going to give us true only if this is true and this one is true. We have this one true and this one true either. Actually, I need to make this true because that was false because B is larger than A. And now if we run, you can see that we got the value of true. After this, we can have one simple operation and comparison right here. And we can make the result of this negative by just putting this exclamation mark before of our comparison. So without this mark, if we run, you know that we got this true because 5 is larger than 3. But if we use this exclamation mark and run again, we got the false value. And this again is going to make our result opposite, make our true result false and make our false result true. Please give a like and subscribe to catch next videos.